Hello, everybody. Today, we will be discussing about an issue of growing interest. More and more evidence is being gathered about the association between frailty and oral health. And we will take a glance at this issue thanks to the participation of three dedicated researchers working on the field. My name is Luis Miguel Gutierrez Robledo. I am the Director General of the National Institute of Geriatric Medicine. And today we will be sharing the floor with Luisa Helena do Nascimento Torres from the Federal University of Santa Maria in Brazil, Faisal Hakim from the Center for Epidemiology at the University of Manchester in the United Kingdom, and Roberto Carlos Castrejón Perez, researcher in oral health at the National Institute of Geriatric Medicine. Welcome you all. Well, in the first place, we will listen to the introduction to this issue by Dr. Luisa Helena do Nascimento Torres. She is an odontologist with a doctorate on odontology, working at the Federal University of Santa Maria in Brazil, and she will be lecturing about the available evidence and the methodological details and results from her analysis. Luisa Helena, the floor is yours.
I'm Luisa Torres, and this presentation is the first part of a symposium entitled Integrating the Evidence on the Association Between Oral Health and Frailty. My presentation is entitled The Available Evidence, Methodological Details, and Results. Before starting, I would like to declare no conflict of interest. My goal is to present and discuss methodological details and results reported on the association between oral health and frailty. My presentation will cover a quick review on why oral health matters, and I will address briefly the epidemiology of oral diseases. Also, I will make an introduction about the association between oral health and frailty, which will be concluded by Dr. Hakim. So, why does oral health matter? Teeth and mouth play physical, social, and psychological functions that allow us, among other things, to communicate, to smile, chew, and swallow. A decrease in oral function as a result of aging has been suggested to have major effects on dysfunction and mortality risk. There is evidence that maintaining or increasing masticatory function is associated with improving diet and life functions of other people, and is implicated in reducing the risk of death or health loss. Therefore, oral health is part of general health and consequently is associated with different aspects of health, well-being, and quality of life. Oral diseases share social determinants, risk factors, and biological pathways with other non-communicable diseases. In addition, it is important to mention that oral diseases are preventable and treatable. However, the treatment of oral diseases can have an important impact on families' budget and may lead the subject to a continuous cycle of tooth extraction when not able to afford more complex treatments. Ultimately, it has a negative social and economic effect on public health. Oral diseases are highly prevalent throughout the life cycle and especially among the aging population due to their chronic nature. Tooth retention has increased as more older adults keep their natural teeth into old ages. Unfortunately, oral diseases are unequally distributed between and within countries, being influenced by social and commercial determinants of health, representing a sensitive clinical marker of social disadvantage. Thus, the developed countries present lower prevalence of poor oral health condition. The cumulative nature of decay and periodontitis dictate that aging is always likely to be a factor associated with complete tooth loss or odontolism. For example, untreated dental caries in the permanent dentition is the most prevalent health condition since 1990. In old ages, old ages also bring some challenges to manage the association between tooth retention and the presence of chronic diseases, polypharmacy, xerostomia, reduced manual dexterity, and mobility limitations. Tooth loss, attachment loss due to periodontal disease, hyposalivation, and decrease of motor skill can contribute to improper masticatory function. Missing teeth can be replaced, but it won't function the same as a natural teeth. Also, an improper rehabilitation increases the risk for incidence of edentalism, and it can turn into a negative cycle. As you can see here, through a quick search on PubMed from 2006 till today, more than 200 publications assessing oral health and frailty were retrieved. The topic is increasing in interest, and we can observe a steady increment in the number of publications during the last year. In addition, this map represents the distinct countries that we can find studies about this topic. As we can see, most of the studies have been performed in high-income countries. Studies have assessed different age groups, populations from distinct settings, and a variety of study designs. All of these heterogeneity results in increased difficulties comparing the results among the studies. We can find in the literature a great amount of frailty screening instruments that have been developed and used in different studies throughout the years. Although we can see a great number of papers that cite frailty instruments, according to Booth and colleagues, there is still a lack of validation studies and of knowledge regarding frailty instrument selection. The lack of consensus on which instrument to use translates on differences in definitions, in frailty prevalence, and in findings as well. It is important to highlight that we can observe manuscripts that have not assessed all of the 5 components of the frailty phenotype, but instead used a component as a proxy of the frailty phenotype screening tool. Here, we can observe different oral health variables assessed in the studies according to its design. The variables were categorized in broad topics as oral characteristics, oral hygiene, oral function, and afterwards they were classified into more specific subjects. For example, it was created the topic oral function and its subgroups comprise chewing, swallowing, occlusal force, among others. Moreover, the color depicts the study design. In orange, we observe the variables assessed in longitudinal research, and in gray, in the cross-sectional ones. This table presents some relevant variables for the evaluation of the association between oral health and frailty. It is possible to observe that all of them, independently of the way it was collected, either clinically or self-reported, were linked with frailty in at least 3 studies. For example, the variable number of teeth have been evaluated in cross-sectional, prospective, and retrospective studies, and it was possible to find an association with frailty when collected through clinical examination. Dry mouth, or a subject measure, were associated with frailty in both cross-sectional and prospective studies. I'll take a minute in this slide and in the next one to call your attention on the variables associated with frailty in some cross-sectional studies. As you can see, there is around 6 studies that have verified the association between number of teeth and frailty. You can see in the green light. However, other 6 studies did not find this relationship, as we can see in the red. And this happens between frailty and other oral health measures. Another example can be seen here. Even though self-rated oral health have been associated with frailty in these studies, another number of researchers did not find this association. A possible explanation for this discrepancy among the findings may be the fact that the studies included more than 70 different oral health variables, objectively and subjectively measured, assessed using different measuring tools. From what was presented, we can presume the great number of covariates and measures used in different ways contribute to limit the ability to draw strong conclusions and to compare the findings. More studies are necessary to better understand the association between oral health and frailty, especially the longitudinal ones. Before concluding this presentation, it is important to consider some additional insights. First, it's necessary to have policies centered on oral health promotion and disease prevention throughout the life course, contributing to a healthy aging. Secondly, frailty therapeutic interventions usually focus on exercise and caloric supplements without taking into account the pleasure of eating. In order to do that, the presence of natural teeth or proper oral rehabilitation is necessary and should be offered through public health systems. In addition, we need to consider the social role associated with eating, the effect on self-esteem, and on appetite. Finally, there is a need to focus on interprofessional assistance in order to guarantee an integral care. Thank you so much. That's my contact, and questions are welcome.
Thank you so much, Luis Helena. It's been a great presentation. And now we will move towards the next participant. Faisal Hakim graduated at the King's College London in a public health doctorate. Now he's working at the Center for Epidemiology at the University of Manchester, and he will be lecturing about how to reintegrate the available evidence. Faisal, the floor is yours.
My name is Faisal Hakim. I'm a research associate at the Center for Epidemiology versus Arthritis at the University of Manchester. I'm also part of the Healthy Aging Research Group at the University of Manchester. And I'm so pleased and honored to present this work here at the World Congress of Gerontology and Geriatrics, IAGG 2022. And today I'm going to cover the second part of the symposium, which will address integrating the available evidence on the association between oral health and frailty. To start with, I have no conflict of interest to declare. And moving to the aim of the presentation, this presentation aims to elaborate on the integration and interpretation of the available evidence on the association between oral health and frailty, and also to identify and interpret the potential path linking oral health and frailty, and finally to offer a sound theoretical background on the association. And an overview of what I'm going to cover. First, we'll go through the oral health variable that is compatible with higher prevalence and incidence of frailty, and also of the oral function measures. and then we'll go through oral health and frailty models and composite measures of oral health. And after that, we'll talk about periodontitis and its association with frailty and the reversed relationship between frailty and oral health. So this is basically just to go through what's been covered in the first presentation in the symposium. And this table shows studies that were the variable that were associated with oral health variables in the literature. And to simplify this, it seems like tooth loss and oral function and subjective measures of oral health, such as self-rated oral health and use of dental services, were associated with higher prevalence and incidence of frailty in the literature. But however, the most profound and consistent association were observed for tooth loss and oral function indicators. And that takes us to think, how are these measures of oral health associated? And that's why we're going to look into the models that covered the association between oral health and frailty in the literature. And this is the first model that was developed by Castrejon-Pérez in 2012. And basically, in this model, poor oral health demonstrated in severe periodontitis and dental caries as the most prevalent oral health condition could lead to frailty through the functional pathway, as it would lead to tooth loss, chewing problems, and food selection. Changes in food selection include changes in the quality and quantity of food, which leads to less micronutrient, protein, fiber intake, and increased consumption of carbohydrate and saturated fat intake. And all of that could lead to malnutrition, weight loss, obesity, fatigue, and sarcopenia, and ultimately to frailty and adverse outcomes. This model also takes account of age itself, socioeconomic indicators, and comorbidities and chronic conditions. And this is the second model, which was developed by Azulino. And in this model, deterioration of oral health coupled with poor oral hygiene, chronic diseases, medication, and swallowing problems could lead to changes in food selection, poor nutrient intake, and malnutrition. And it shows, we should also emphasize that in this model, deterioration of oral health have a direct impact on sarcopenia and physical frailty. And also in this model, it took account of psychosocial factors and physiological changes as well. And this is the last model, which was developed in an editorial by Morley in the Journal of Nutrition, Health, and Aging. And basically, in this model, poor oral health demonstrated in poor teeth and xerostomia, coupled with cognitive dysfunction, could lead to chewing ability, which lead to dysphagia and malnutrition, sarcopenia, frailty, and disability. And there is also a bidirectional relationship between malnutrition and sarcopenia and dysphagia. So thinking of this model, it focused on the function of the mouth, and it gave rise to composite measure of oral function that aim to evaluate a comprehensive oral function of older adults. And perhaps the most important and most popular composite measure of oral functions are oral hypofunction and oral frailty. And these composite measures include objective and subjective variables, combining them from previously validated measures, conceptual models, and from statistical procedures. However, we should keep in mind that oral function is the convergence of three systems: the oral structures themselves, like the teeth and periodontium, and also the musculoskeletal system, and finally, the nervous system. The convergence of these systems gives rise to the complex oral function and gives rise to pain and taste, oral motor skills, and the vertical dimension of the face. However, if we look into the composite measure that we have in the literature, it seems these composite measures concentrate only on oral structure and oral motor skills. So there is also there is a need for more emphasis on the neurological system and the musculoskeletal system as well. And in terms of periodontitis, which is the condition that affects the structure that support the teeth, it has been the oral condition attracting the most interest in health research. And that is basically based on its association with chronic conditions such as diabetes and cardiovascular disease. And there is also sound theoretical background in its association with inflammatory response. And that should include the mechanism linking periodontitis and frailty. However, the available evidence till now doesn't support that mechanism. And many studies have hypothesized that periodontal disease might influence frailty status through its association with inflammatory biomarkers in the body. However, the impact of inflammation of frailty is still not fully understood. And for explaining this, we must recall that frailty is recognized as a state of increased vulnerability related to physiological decline and reduced capacity. Therefore, it's possible that frailty involves physiological systems challenging the ability to identify this association. And even though most of the studies in the literature concentrated on the association assigning oral health as a predictor and frailty as an outcome, the bidirectional association between oral health and frailty cannot be dismissed, as frailty could impact oral health through sarcopenia, loss of function, cognitive decline, which leads to difficulty performing oral hygiene and accessing dental services. And that could promote accelerated deterioration and decline of oral health. And that has been studied in limited number of studies in the literature. And basically these two studies, in the first study, frail participants had higher odds of having active coronal decay services compared to robust participants. And the other study, frail older adult living in care homes, had lower odds of brushing and denture cleaning compared to non-frail residents. So to summarize, fewer number of teeth and poorer oral function showed the most consistent association with frailty. And the finding of should be interpreted with caution, given that most of these studies were conducted using the cross-sectional design. And also a bidirectional relationship between oral health and frailty possibly exists, even though it's not explicitly or adequately tested in the literature. And finally, there is still need to explore the role of nutrition as a mediator of the association between oral health and frailty. Thank you all for listening, and this is my email for any communication related to this presentation.
Thank you, Faisal, for an outstanding presentation. I am certain that we will be able to discuss and that many questions will be raised because of what you have just shown. Thank you so much. And now we will rapidly move into the next presentation, which is oral health and frailty implications, gaps, and what's coming next, which are the next steps. And it is Dr. Roberto Carlos Castrejón Pérez, a researcher on public health and oral health and aging in the National Institute of Geriatric Medicine in Mexico, who will be speaking. Roberto, please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Hi all. I am Roberto Carlos Castrejón Pérez, and I will talk about oral health and frailty, implications, gaps, and next steps. I start by declaring that I have no conflict of interest. And after the presentations by Luisa and Faisal, the aim of my presentation is to discuss the implications of the association between oral conditions and frailty, to present new questions to address, and to suggest some of the next steps on the topic. I will address the implications on oral functions, on the temporary association between oral conditions and frailty, and will touch a few issues on the potentially causal association. I will close by presenting together some of the new questions and next steps for addressing the topic. The previous presentations highlighted the consistent association between oral conditions and frailty, despite the different operational definitions or cutoff values for the number of teeth, for example. Also mentioned that oral function is the convergence of three systems, but must be aware that oral characteristics are relevant for oral function. And as stated earlier, oral conditions are treatable. Today, there is a solid body of evidence on various strategies to manage oral conditions, especially to replace the missing teeth, which would allow us to enjoy the food flavor for a longer time in life. However, the functions of the mouth could not be managed by dental professional alone. and need to be a collaborative effort with the nutritionist and perhaps psychologists to rehabilitate the function of the mouth, especially because it seems that older adults get used to a low-quality diet. And for improving the diet of a person, the dentist will help improving the oral characteristics. And a dietitian could help to teach to include a broad variety of nutritious natural food. And this approach should be favored against the replacement of the food with supplements. We stated earlier that the onset of oral conditions happens earlier in life and has an accumulative effect, which zooms to the fact that oral conditions are interrelated with each other and may be closely related to certain degree of long-time low-grade undernourishment with effects or symptoms clinically evident at older ages. Older people today is preserving a larger number of natural teeth, which is a challenge for the management of health. This fact promotes that the incidence of conditions such as arthritis, Parkinson's disease, and dementia should be considered as risk factors for oral conditions, since would challenge the dexterity to perform self-oral care. In this manner, some have proposed a bidirectional association between oral conditions and frailty. On the causal association, Faisal mentioned that the models proposed to explain the association between oral conditions and frailty. And we proposed this model in the upper right a couple years ago, incorporating sarcopenia and nutritional conditions as on the path between oral conditions and frailty. But these old models respond to the studies design available study design with the frailty status as a dependent variable. Oral conditions onset happens at young ages, challenging the ability to identify or suggest causality, not only because of the time to the onset of frailty, but because oral conditions may impact on various dimensions of life and health, such as self-esteem and social interactions, which have been also suggested associated with the onset of frailty. Additionally, the oral function is the convergence of three systems as stated earlier, and the failure of any of these systems may result in a compromised oral function. With this approach, sarcopenia may explain part of the reduced bite force and the reduced tongue pressure in any older people. And stroke may explain part of the reduced dexterity to maintain the food in the mouth while eating. That will also challenge the ability to chew appropriately while eating. This is not the argument to highlight the relevance of oral conditions, but to point to frailty as a complex condition, which may require complex multidisciplinary approaches to manage. On the other hand, cognitive decline and dependence in instrumental activities of daily living will also challenge the ability of older people to maintain self-oral care. So, as new questions and next steps, we can identify several opportunities from the design of the case control studies, addressing the potential effect of frailty on oral conditions, comparing the oral decline rate between frail and non-frail people, or comparing the survival rate and frailty incidence according to the oral conditions among frail and non-frail people. Also, to design some new prospective studies aiming to evaluate the incidence and decline rate of oral conditions among frail older people. We could also perform some clinical trials exploring the effect of multidisciplinary interventions, including oral rehabilitation, diet rehabilitation, and exercise in older people, to evaluate the incidence and progression to frailty, the survival of older people, and the compression of dependence for the last years of life. For this, we should, I will highlight the opportunity to complement dental interventions, nutritional interventions, exercise intervention, but nutritional interventions should be also including nutritious natural food plus supplements required. The questions are vast, but the answers for these questions for sure should be collaborative. As for dental professionals, we already know frail people, oral conditions, and functional status. Therefore, we can say that they need to recover and improve their quality of life, to have access to a broad variety of nutritious food, and preserve oral hygiene. And for achieving so, the dental professionals should offer quality treatments, short-term treatments, in-home treatments when possible, have a proper treatment plan with a reduced number and short clinical appointments, but also train their caregivers and avoid the utilization of additional medication, which lead us to the relevance of collaboration and communicating between specialties, particularly with those responsible of the main health condition of the older patient. Thank you so much, and I hope you find this information interesting, and feel free to comment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roberto. With this, we end our symposium, and now we will give way to questions and answers. Thank you so much.
Yes, and just there is probably another issue that we are overlooking, and it's related to another question that has been raised by the audience. It's the role of the health professionals about oral health. And why do you think that this is so frequently overlooked? In fact, you have gone through all the review of a very interesting functional approach that is maybe what we need now. But when we think about the attitudes of other health professionals related to other health, what is behind this systematically overlooking oral health? What do you think about it? Maybe Luisa could tell us, and Faisal, and then Roberto.
I mean, we dentists, we have a difficulty with working with others. So even in the graduation, we are not used, at least in Brazil, we are not used to work with different multidisciplinary, and maybe it starts with that. But now that we want to, maybe we don't, the other professionals don't see us, helping them. Actually, I don't know why this, but I think we should, as dentists, we need still to prove that we are here to help, and we need to show our work and the importance of our work, multitasking aspects.
Yes, indeed. Building on what Luisa said, oral health is overlooked, especially in the geriatric and gerontology aspects. And perhaps there are some tools to be incorporated into, for example, comprehensive geriatric assessment could be some oral health measurements, simple self-reported oral health measurement could be easily included. For example, how do you rate your health, the health of your mouth and teeth, and how many teeth do you have, or do you have pain in your mouth? These simple measurements could be simple indicators that this geriatric patient could use dental services or should be referred to a dental professional for accessing and solving these problems. And also there are other models that could be incorporated into care homes and other geriatric settings. For example, incorporating other oral health professionals like dental hygienists or dental assistants could easily perform some important and basic oral health needs for those vulnerable population.
I think that's a very interesting point. How do we teach other health professionals to address oral health in a very simple and straightforward manner, so that we could, for example, use this approach to enrich the performance of instruments like the ICOPE initiative developed by WHO. We could easily incorporate this oral health perspective if we were able to develop such an approach. What do you think about it, Roberto?
Definitely, that's something achievable. We already have the data. We already have the evidence on what it is working, but we have to get to organize it and have to agree that we have different levels of data. We have to trust on self-report data. It may be not the best data we would like to have access to, but we have to rely on the utility of it. And we have to acknowledge that there is different levels of data that is required for different objectives. At first, we need to understand what is the condition of the population and how to improve it. But today, the World Health Organization is pushing into the person-centered approach, and that is what matters for the people. And the best way to understand that is by listening to the patient. Then we as a professionals would like to, as a dental professionals, we would like to have people with 32 teeth pristine in the mouth. But that is not something that all people is interested in. We have some issues with the tradition. Oral conditions have been neglected by ourselves and the profession and different health professionals because we work separately. Because people with aging traditionally, and I will mention really old people and previous generations, because they experience oral conditions, they think, and a lot of people, this is common knowledge, they expect to experience dental deterioration, oral deterioration, because they experience that during generations. Then we are not used to understand, and we are not willing to work the way to maintain a better oral health for ourselves. I have been pointing out this very frequently. Compartmentalization of health has been a great way to improve knowledge and to develop technologies and treatment for specific conditions. And today, 2022, we have a huge mass of knowledge on health. Yet we have to integrate it back together to improve the conditions of the people, of the patient. There is the need to continue growing on this compartmentalization approach. But for improving the quality of the treatment and the health of the population, we have to put it together to integrate it in favor of the patient. This is how to do it. We have to use friendlier ways to record data by trusting the self-reported data with instruments like ICOPE, and to put it into the next level when designing interventions. Interventions should consider a larger age group, because in preventing oral condition of older population should begin with younger people. But we have to teach older people how to take care of themselves and that they can have a better quality of diet and to regain joy for eating by improving the quality and the condition of their mouth. And this is dental interventions. We, as a dentist, we have walked a large way to have a large variety of interventions accessible today, high tech, but we know and we have also all traditional dental interventions that work, that make it possible to improve the quality of the condition.
And from that perspective, in fact, how this has evolved through the last 50 years. In fact, successive generations are having better oral health around the world. And this is another layer of complexity that we still have to add to our approach. Thinking about a life course perspective, another issue that has not yet been addressed. I would like to know, Luisa, I didn't really heard about this issue being addressed in the already published literature.
Sorry, could you please repeat?
Yes, a life course is a life course perspective already being addressed in the research that is available.
Yes, this life course perspective. Yes, there are some studies, but still they are following like for 20, 30 years. So, but we can see, if I understood what you asked, that it's really important to work with young people to maintain their teeth, so they will have them and have a better perception throughout lifespan. I'm not sure if that was what you asked. Yeah.
Absolutely, Jess. Indeed,
Yes.
that's the point. And maybe we still have 1 minute and a half just to close. I would like to hear you with a phrase, just closing what we have discussed. Faisal?
Yeah, basically we have discussed a lot of things, and basically oral health is very important for all the population. And if there's something that I want to emphasize, I really encourage researchers around the world and in the geriatric area specifically to incorporate oral health. It doesn't have to be clinical oral health. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to have a dentist to make a mouth examination. You could use self-reported measures of oral health, and these have showed validity and reliability in the literature. So please consider using oral health measurement in geriatric research. That will be very helpful for improving the field, and also for the point that you've made, like the dental transition, people are maintaining more teeth at old age, and that have implications. For example, the rehabilitation of the mouth would be harder for older adults to have it at the age of 80, 90, compared to previously when people used to lose their teeth around 40s. They had the neurological and psychological capabilities to go through oral rehabilitation, but that wouldn't be the case with the improvement and maintain teeth at old age.
Luisa, closing comment?
Well, I think there are two ways to look at it. We still have to work a lot to rehabilitate and to work multidisciplinary in a multidisciplinary team to give a proper oral health to all subjects. But we need to work with. Also, we still need to work with dental students and to occupy these spaces and to work with them so they know how to act properly and to maintain society oral health in an adequate way. So we need to be in both, taking care of both things. People with that have no teeth, the older ones, but the younger ones to keep their teeth.
Thank you. Roberto?
Well, I will say that I will invite you all to overcome the myths and stereotypes around oral health. Come close to dental professionals, especially researchers. We will find a way to work it out together in order to improve the quality of our research, or also to improve the design of interventions aiming to improve the condition of the patient. To understand, I think that to understand further frailty and the aging process, we have to work together. It is no longer an solo work. Overcome these myths and stereotypes, and we will find a way to work it out. We should help each other to improve the quality of our knowledge. Thank you so much, Dr. Luis Miguel, Faisal, Luisa. Thank you all for being here, for listening to our presentation or symposium, and let's keep working.
Indeed, I hope that we will soon be seeing the paper coming out from this symposium. You have all the information that is needed for a very, very interesting meta-analysis and a series of proposals to move forward. So I think that it's the next step, and thank you to you all. Thank you to the audience for a very interesting symposium.
Thank you.
Thank you.